Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss new videos. Let's jump right in.
So this is a very long story. My old middle school does this thing called a candygram, and you pay for a note and a candy to be delivered to a friend. This was usually during the holidays fundraising season, and overall, I never really got one. Yeah, I have plenty of friends, but what kind of middle schooler is going to pay $5 for that kind of stuff? Halloween of 2022, I was in my first class of the day, advisory. And like every other year, they were passing out these candygrams. Imagine my surprise when one was given to me. I initially assumed it was from my best friend, and that he just wrote something stupid. Nope, instead it just said, "You are cute, love Anonymous." I was elated. Nobody ever had much interest in me at that point, and the thought of someone going out of their way and spending money on me was very flattering. I show my friends in advisory and then move on to the next class. Except this time someone knows who Anonymous may be. They say this girl in their advisory has a massive crush on me, but they won't tell me who. After a bunch of guessing, I settle on one person. Her name is Trisha, and she is a friend of a friend. Up to that point, I had only talked to her once during a gym period, and I had to be reminded of what she even looked like. The day goes on and we have a Halloween assembly. Everything is normal. On my way out of the gym, I look behind me to see if any of my friends are nearby. And lo and behold, Trisha is standing behind me. The reason I remember this so vividly is because she slipped on a purge mask as soon as we made eye contact. I sound like a bad horror author, but I shit you not, that is what happened. Needless to say, I ran away and did some legendary trick-or-treating that night. The next day, I open my locker to a pink folded-up piece of construction paper. It is a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, you are for me and I love you, secret lover. I'm looking at it as I type this right now. I run over to my friend and we are both bent over laughing because what the hell. The next weeks I have about 2 notes in my locker every day, but here are the worst. I watch you at your house because I can just imagine how our house would look like when we are married, less than 3 inches. UHHHM what? Your feet probably smell amazing, less than 3 from the watcher. She's never even been near my feet. You smell nice, never been within 10 feet of this girl. Hi love, it's me. I love you, have a nice day, less than 3 stalker. Why would you call yourself stalker? I apologize for the creepy ones. She knows she was doing something weird. I'm sorry baby boy, I just love you so much and need to be with you, stalker. I'm a girl, always have been. These are all word for word, and I'm staring at the pile of them right now. She kept switching sign-offs to either the watcher, secret lover, anonymous, and stalker. Why would you ever call yourself a stalker? Most times my friends would see her slip the notes into my locker during passing period, and once I even saw her do it myself. In about a week, all my friends know every detail of this fiasco and they all found it pretty funny. Honestly, I did too. Remember that friend of a friend? Well, her and I are very close and she lives within 5 minutes walking distance of my house. She said when her and Trisha were hanging out, she kept bringing me up and asking questions about my family. Then she asked if my friend would show her my house. My friend adjusted that she wouldn't, but Trisha was persistent. No matter how many times she said no, Trisha would ask and ask. My friend never did tell her my address, and she kicked Trisha out of her house. That same friend added me to a Google document that Trisha's friend group used to talk throughout the school day, and every single thing was about me, what I was wearing that day, who I was walking with, and how Trisha and I would make such a good couple. Trisha even wrote down my mom's license plate numbers in the doc. I wish I had screenshot this, but even if I did, I don't have that device anymore. Mind you, I was 12 at the time this was all happening, so I was very stupid, and I make my presence known in the doc. I don't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of what the hell. I add my best friend to the document and he starts putting on a performance claiming that we are a couple, and Trisha needs to back off. Trisha says sorry, and it is all quiet for a few days. I go back to the doc to see if anything else has happened, but now it's just Trisha and I in it. She tells this story of how she was up all night crying while writing me an apology love letter, and how she threw it in a fire. I have no clue why she felt the need to share all of this. Now I decided I was going to the counselor. I'm sad to admit that up to that point I thought it was all really entertaining, but something about her burning things fucked with me. After I tell this whole tale to the counselor, Trisha gets pulled out of class. But guess what? They didn't delete the document. I'm still baffled that all she got was a reprimand but was still left with a way to contact me. She says a bunch of weird shit that I have blocked out at this point, but I remember her saying that when they said my name during her getting in trouble, if you can even call it that, she had a huge pit in her stomach. Needless to say, I removed myself from the dock and didn't give her any more attention. Mind you, throughout this whole thing, I had never spoken to her in person. She continued to stare at me during lunch the rest of the year, and ask people really weird questions about me. But thankfully that has stopped now we are in high school. I occasionally see her in the halls, and I just walk as quickly as I can past her. Trisha, let's not meet. Well, I saw this place, and I have something that still haunts me to this day. Sadly, a kid I told this story to took it as his own and butchered it on 4chan with a lot of inconsistencies. Needless to say, I snapped at the lad as I take this real story of mine seriously, cause it was the first night I was shown that I am easy prey. So a bit of lore leading up to the situation. In 2016, I was living in Denver, Colorado. I was in high school at the time, and I had a good decent job that was paying me well but fired me for being a metal and techno music blaster as I did the job. Me and my family moved due to dear old dad getting into it with a landlord, resulting in, well, I can't say here cause it would violate the first rule of this place. We moved a few months later to a city in southern Colorado cause rent was cheap there and still is. I'm a bit of a horror and paranormal lover, so naturally stuff like a skinwalker or werewolf drew me in. Something about it just spoke to me to check it out, and being a horror nerd, it was a good time hearing and reading such stories, even ones that are true. But no one realizes how horrifying things can get when you're met with the real thing. It is unclear to me if these are evil shaman or spirits, but I can tell you a warm night in 2021 was the night that put things into perspective on why you should never want something like that to show up with. That we have a bit of my history leading up to this encounter in my own home. The night was like any other. I just got home from a new job I got cleaning a call center, and relaxed with some Destiny 2 with friends in one ear, and listening to Navajo shaman talk about skinwalkers and their history in the other. Needless to say, it got very dark to me. After a few hours, I called it quits on Destiny 2 with the lads, as we were doing Vanguard Nightfall missions that night to get a certain heavy ammo using grenade launcher. We succeeded in that, getting some good rolls, but alas, we aren't here to talk about Destiny. So after about 3 hours of going to bed, I was woken up by a pair of glowing red eyes just watching me. I couldn't move. My body was locked in place as if it was screaming at me, don't move, or you're dead. Now this is where things take a turn. I was still living with my family when this happened, so you can bet not only was I scared and unable to move, I was scared what it was going to do to my mother and younger brother and sick father. I could feel and hear my own heart beating, slowing down. Then the growling came. It started getting close to my bed, growling and on occasion snarling. It was pitch black in the room. All I could see was its eyes, those blood-red angry eyes that tell you, the world you know it has ended. What happens now is my choice. It felt like an eternity, but it backed off and I could move again. But I didn't want to. Why? It was still there staring at me and growling as if testing me, or seeing what I was gonna do so it can do what it really wanted to do to me. I never took my eyes off of its eyes, not even to shut my eyes and wish for it to go away. But in the words of a Mr. Quint, sometimes it don't go away. I was thinking, scared, that it had to be a nightmare, had to be any moment I would wake up to my bedroom light on and my younger brother slapping me to wake me from it. But it wasn't. I didn't get such a mercy. After a long time, the sun started to rise and the eyes disappeared without a trace. Not taking any chances, I grabbed my handgun and did a sweep of the house. Mom was terrified. Dad laid there asking me what the hell sounded like a warped chainsaw. But my brother, he saw it, and he wished he hadn't gave a description. I remember his words to a damn T. It looked like some skinny tall person with a wolf's head. It stared at me for a bit. The teeth looked like a bunch of knives, and the hands like a human's with Freddy Krueger claws going on. I don't know what the hell that was, but I don't ever want to see it again. Dad went in to a yelling fit, blaming me for giving them all nightmares. Playing some horror flick. I went to bed, as that's what he chalked it up to, when I never did that. Hours later, Mom took me for a drive and parked at the city park, asking me, what the hell was that thing last night? I told her I don't know, but whatever the hell it was not friendly, not in the slightest. The following weeks, bad luck happened. My runs in D2 went to hell. My job was on my butt saying I never cleaned and missed a lot of spots when I never did miss a spot, to the point to where I told them to shove it and I quit during that time. The employees of the call center gave their support for me. I thanked them for that, as they said there was no problems at all. Everything was clean to the point they could eat off the break room or bathroom floor if they wanted to. So they couldn't understand why my boss was losing his mind at me. So I went to a shaman out in the rural parts of the city and told him what happened. What he said next was, well, you drew it to you with your interest, and it took interest in you, not cause you're a negative energy buffet. Even though you try to be polite and nice, you must have some native blood in your family tree. It's still out there watching you. I don't know if it was an evil spirit or a skinwalker, but I'll tell you what, I'll get a priest friend of mine and bless your house ASAP for free. It will keep it away as long as you don't feed it or attract it any further. I still paid the shaman and I donated to his priest friend's church. 2 days later, Dad's health went to hell so bad that it was time for a hospice. 3 days later, Dad called and had me, Mom and brother come to see him one last time. We said our goodbyes but made Mom and brother leave and me stay to have one last conversation. I saw it in my window last night, son. I am sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I've done to you, and the hell I put you and your brother and mother through. I'm so sorry. I thought it was a horror movie you had blaring that night. I know you hate me, you have every right to do so. You can tell me off and yell, scream and curse at me. I've made my peace with God, but know this, it's still out there. It's waiting for you. Take care of your mother and your brother. Keep that thing far away from them. I know you will do the right thing. Those were the last words he spoke before he died right in front of me. I said aloud. The dead have settled their debts and it's time for living to pick up the tab. I'll do my best and that thing will never get near them as long as I still draw breath. Rest in peace, Dad. May you find more peace in the afterlife than you did in life. Me and my father had a rocky relationship. When I turned into a teen around 2016, I stopped acting like him and became a better person. Dad was a jerk with delusions of wealth and grandeur. I always butted heads with him on how he treated people in the house and in public, even traded punches on a few occasions. But now we come to 2024, I told a kid this story in a Discord VC. And well, I find a post on 4chan days later where he screwed it up with timetables and inconsistent times and dates and months. He even made a follow-up post and yet again he screwed it up, saying I had my gun at the ready, front door was smashed till the sun came up. None of that happened except me doing a sweep of the house with the handgun in hand. All doors were undamaged. What really pissed me off is my dad passed away around that time, and that thing came into my home to show me that it could easily get to me and my family if it so chose to kill us all. We moved from that house into an apartment due to hard times, and yes, I am still living in the same city, but whenever I recount or remember or speak of this incident, I feel watched. Even a border collie I adopted named Emmy growls at a closet or the front door at night. It's out there and it's waiting for its moment, and I'll be waiting right for it now that I have a sense of what I might be up against. I am more than happy to talk or have someone share a similar experience, but know this, I will never say the name Skinwalker in a VC or anywhere aloud, cause to do that, from what I learned, is like inviting a vampire into your home. You do not want that. Thank you for reading this. It also allowed me to clear the air thanks to that kid, but this is a moment of my life I will never forget, and it seems will follow me to the grave. Never forget, there are forces in this world we will never understand, but never paint a target on your back, cause then they will come.
That's it for today's story. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in this situation? See you in the next one.